3 things you may not realize are caused by your teen's ADHD. Hi, my name's Catherine, and I'm a therapist with Mindful Healing. When it comes to ADHD, there's a lot of different presentations, and each one is unique because it has to do with how each individual brain works. That being said, there are certain things that we can track across a lot of different ADHD brains with a surprising amount of consistency. So here are 3 things that your child may do that you didn't realize were caused by ADHD. The first thing is time blindness. A lot of people experience time as something that happens around them. They can sense time passing. They can say, it's been about 10 minutes and move on to a new project if they need to. For people with ADHD, time is an extremely relative concept. This is usually shown in being constantly late, losing track of time when you're doing something, those 10-minute showers that turn into an hour and 45 minutes. This is because a lot of people with ADHD experience something called time blindness. They don't feel time passing and they can't get a good gauge on what takes them 5 minutes and what takes them 30 seconds. They may be convinced that it only takes them 30 seconds to get dressed, get their shoes on, and walk to the car, when in reality that takes 15 minutes. And no matter how many times they do it, their brain's going to tell them, yeah, it takes about 30 seconds. This means that for a lot of people with ADHD, they run late a lot. This is pure ADHD, and there's ways to work around it. For example, using things like musical playlists instead of time tracking. It's a lot easier to say, oh no, I didn't realize that this Mick Jagger song was playing. That means I'm running late, than it is to say, well, it's been about 7 or 8 minutes since I started this task. The second thing is clumsiness. A lot of people with ADHD experience something called action inhibition. This means that the part of our brain that says, hey, think about what you're going to do before you do it, doesn't kick on. That results in people acting immediately as the thought hits their brain. So my favorite example is reaching for a cup that has something in the way. You may reach across the table to go for the cup before your brain tells you, hey, there's stuff in the way you're going to knock over. This means you're going to plow right through the stuff in order to get your cup. This happens in a lot of different circumstances and results in people with ADHD appearing really clumsy, like they knock things over. They may seem even negligent because they don't take these things into account. It's not negligence. It's essentially just no brain inhibition. There's ways to work around it, but the easiest thing to understand is that this is something that your brain does, and you don't have to feel any guilt or shame about it. Try and keep clear pathways and put things in easily accessible places so that you don't end up knocking things over. And the last thing, and my personal favorite, is pattern recognition. ADHD brains are experts in pattern recognition because all of those things that our other brains, neurotypical brains, may have to filter out passively, and they don't really need to think about it in order to identify what category these things fall into, ADHD brains do manually. That means that essentially ADHD brains take in everything around them and then sort them manually to figure out which goes into what category. This process is actually pretty difficult, and it means that people with ADHD develop some really great pattern recognition. This means they're really good at things like identifying what's going to happen next in TV shows and books. It can make them really great mystery solvers. It can also mean they're pretty good at riddles. This sneaky little skill is something that can be a lot of fun for an ADHD brain to engage in, but can also be turned to work for them instead of against them if they can find patterns that work for them or the people around them just by simply stepping back and observing. If you have more questions about ADHD, please feel free to reach out to Mindful Healing. Thanks.